Hey, good morning, guys. Good morning, and welcome to Restore Q&A. Um, Excited to. Oh boy. Uh, there we go. I'm really thankful for being able to do this because it allows us to connect right after service. And again, it's just like if we were in the lobby or in the foyer at Restore. So I'm getting a second to letting y'all log on, and while we do that, I'm pulling up YouTube also to get some comments from there. Well, while I'm logging on, get some questions right away, or to ask. Are there anything you guys want to talk about right off the bat? Anything that is jumping out to you? Anything you want to talk about? Let's see. I think my internet might be a little slow here, but that's all right. Well, while we're all right, I'm good. I'm ready to go. Sorry, it takes it a second, and can't really get things going until really can't get things going until we kind of wrap up the recording as of like for our internet here, so at the house. All right, well, I'm going to just recap a couple of things that I talked about during the sermon, and a couple of things that really stuck out to me just as I studied through the passage and studied through Acts chapter 8. The Ethiopian eunuch is always a story that sticks out to me. It's always a story I've been drawn to because I've never had all of the answers. I got a text about where's Restore Q&A. It should be on our YouTube. It is live on our YouTube. So I've never been one to have the answers. I've never been one to feel like I've always had the answers. And so the Ethiopian eunuch, what is awesome about him is that he didn't have the answers. He just wanted to respond to God right away and respond to what Jesus had done for him, and so he just jumped right into baptism immediately. And so I pointed to that passage a couple times to people who say, "Man, I want to get baptized. I just don't know the answers. I want to get baptized. I just don't know enough." And what that does for baptism is it makes baptism the end goal. When baptism really is just the beginning. And so it's once we're baptized, that's really once we start to try to study more and put some pieces together. So, and then studying the Ethiopian eunuch, just realizing the sacrifice that he put in, the sacrifice of, like we mentioned, traveling 200 miles just to be a part of something that that he knew he wouldn't completely be a part of. And so again, man, that's always kind of stuck out to me. Apparently, yeah, we're live on YouTube. All right, I didn't see it, but so I've always appreciated the story of the Ethiopian eunuch who wouldn't completely be a part of. And I'm really excited to get back into the book of Acts. It's always meant a lot to me, the book of Acts. It was one of the first classes I took in college, and I didn't do so hot the first time around. But it's really the story of the church, in the beginning of the church. And it's kind of timely that we're hitting a section in Acts where where it's really a crucial part for the church. If you'd followed through Acts, you'd see that it's all kind of stayed local in Jerusalem. And so it becomes a part, becomes a point where there's an intersection between what they believe about Jesus and what they've been taught. So as I was listening and watching today, a couple of the things that jumped out to me was like, if we're gonna as a church stand up, number one, we gotta stand up for the right things. So trying to find out like what are some of the barriers for us as a church or as the church, what are some of the barriers to standing up, right? And we're going to talk about these probably a little bit more as they come, but not everybody joins for Restore Q&A, so they'll see them for the sermon. But some of those barriers for the church standing up that I thought of are tradition, like a loyalty to tradition. I mean, some things are great when they're started and when they begin, but that doesn't mean they're great later on. Some traditions that are started are just toxic from the get-go, but because it's what we're grown up in, or because it's what we think we know is true, it's difficult to come out of those. And you'll see that as Acts continues to grow. I mean, or Acts continues to go. You'll see, actually it's next week, or it's in 2 weeks in Acts chapter 10, Peter has to address his own racism. He has to address what he's grown up in and some of the traditions he thought that are or were true. And Jesus, man, he teaches him something new. He actually says, don't call anything that God has called clean, don't call it unclean. Tradition's one of them. Comfort is another one. I mean, we're all pretty accustomed to comfort, and so trying to overcome that in order to stand up. Division. That's one of the other barriers we've got to overcome. And then, man, I was asked the other day, here's another barrier, and that is shouting. The other day I was asked, what is Restore Church going to do to confront racism? Like, it's one thing for us to talk about it. It's another thing to do something about it, right? And so, like I mentioned last week, if we're going to talk about it, we got to do more than post about it, right? So, it was one of my black friends. He texted me and said, Roger, what is Restore Church going to do about racism? And what a great question. And like, what are some real steps we're going to take? And I didn't speak immediately. I didn't text back right away. After thinking about it, I think the best thing that we can do is to listen. And not listen to reply, but listen to understand. Listen to feel, listen to experience empathy and sympathy. And in a culture right now where every group has felt like they've been attacked. Okay, so I'm no way diminishing any feelings of the black community or anything at all. So, but at different times, every group has felt attacked, right? Like the church is like, we feel attacked at a certain time, Uh, um, and so when we get attacked, personally or a group we're a part of, we get louder, right? We get defensive. We put our walls up immediately, and then whoever we feel might be attacking us, they do the same thing, and it just creates this huge divide. And so, man, in our life, in our culture, in our society, in our marriages, in our parenting, like, we just need to listen. And shouting doesn't provide any help. It tells people when you're hurt, right? I guess it communicates anger, but it doesn't resolve anything. And so as a church, my reply to my friend was, we're going to listen. That's going to be our first step to progress, is we want to listen. So if you're here, I see. Okay, cool. I see a couple of you here. That's awesome. If you're here and a part of this, are there any other barriers that you see the church maybe experiencing as we try to stand up? Maybe it's anything you guys can think of. I'm gonna jump over here and make sure that we're seeing any questions that are asked. Very cool. Next week we're going to jump into Acts chapter 9, and what an important chapter it is, really, for all of us, for every Christian, because it's the time that Saul has this transformation to start following Jesus. And he becomes the most critical church planter ever, and we have a lot to be thankful for Paul. It seems like there's a little bit more significant delay this week than last week, so I am gonna pause for a second. Very cool. Well, it's almost 11:20. We've been on here for about 15 minutes. A couple things I'm asking you guys to pray for, and that's just Restore Church as we try to take steps forward. This is a great question. Hunter Walker replied, "Can you be baptized more than once?" We hear this question a lot. He shares some details in his comment. And Hunter, you and I are going to connect this week, man. You want to be baptized again? That's awesome. Here's a couple things I'd say to someone who says, "I want to be baptized." Can I be baptized again? So every time that someone every time in the New Testament, so we get our cue from the Bible every time. Every time we see someone who is baptized in the New Testament, it is their own faith, Hunter. They come to the decision themselves. I want to give my life to Jesus. No one makes that decision for them. It's the reason we don't baptize babies, right? They can't make that decision on their own. We even start to, like, if a child who's 7, 8 wants to get baptized, we do start to ask questions. And while in the same vein they don't need to know all the answers, they do need to have an understanding of what they're doing, and it needs to be their own decision of faith. Now, I was baptized when I was 13. I was at church camp. I was actually there as a as a volunteer. I think I was 13. Yeah, I was there as a volunteer. My dad was the dean of the week of camp, and it was there that God got a hold of my heart. And so when I came back, just like a lot of kids who go to camp, when they come back on Thursday or Friday, they line up to get baptized on Sunday, and that's what we did. And what a great, what a great and awesome time, celebration for my family and for me also. But there was a time after that where y'all I really didn't want to have anything to do with church. Um, I thought the church was antiquated, like outdated. It had nothing to do for me, and I wanted nothing to do with it. I went because my parents went. My dad worked for the church, um, but it was just not for me. And it was okay if it was for you, but it just wasn't for me, right? So I walked away, but was still there in the faith, and I was still there in church, and I thank my parents for continuing to keep me there. That passage, parents, that says, raise your kids, teach them in the way they should go. So when they grow older, it won't depart from them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be a Christ follower the rest of their lives. But what it does mean is that what you taught them when they were a kid won't grow far from them. And so my parents, who kept me around church and in church, it didn't depart me. It stayed close to me. So uh, when I went to college is really where I found a significant relationship with Jesus. It's where I decided to give him not just parts of my life, but all of it. And then I came to this decision, man, do I need to get baptized again? So I talked to some professors and at the college, the Bible college I was going to, and here's basically the conclusion. If you made the decision, so for me, I was 13 and I made that decision, and it was my own free will decision. God did everything spiritually in that baptism that he needed to do. The cleansing. At Restore, we believe that's the moment you receive the Holy Spirit. The identification, the death, burial, and resurrection. That all happens in that faith moment where you made that decision to be baptized. And so when I became a dedicated Christ follower later, when I was 17 and in college, I didn't need to get baptized again. As far as God was concerned, he had done everything he needed to do. But if I wanted to, because it meant something to me, because it would be like a stake in the ground for my faith, because it would have been like, here's the moment, then I could have. I didn't. I didn't get baptized again. But I would say this to anybody. And if you're an adult now and you're like, dude, I'm making the decision for me now, and it's going to be a significant moment for you, like a rallying cry or a moment where you're like, dude, this is it, white knuckled, nostril flaring, I'm in, then I say go for it. I say do it, because it will be a significant event in your faith journey. But if the question is, spiritually, do I need to? If my answer is, then if you made the decision, the conscious decision to be baptized, it was a faith in and like on your own, then you don't have to. But if you would like to, you can. It's here that if you're listening, this is where I would say also the significance of baptism. This is an important like theological point here, is that the word baptism is the Greek word for baptizo, and really what it means is to be fully, completely immersed under water. There is a Greek word for dip, and there is a Greek word for sprinkle, and the Bible doesn't use them for salvation, like or for in the book of Acts when someone comes to know Jesus. And so it's for those people also. If you said, man, I was sprinkled as a child, or I was dipped, I would encourage you to be completely immersed, baptized in the way that the Bible talks about it. Man, Hunter, thanks for putting yourself out there, man, and you and I can connect. Um, and you and I can connect this week and really talk about what that looks like for you. Um, I'm saying this to you and whoever's listening, man. I'm proud of you. Proud of you. Well, I know and I'm seeing that there is a significant delay in my internet in the stream. Okay, so I do not want to miss anything. I'm refreshing my page here. Yeah. So I'm just gonna sit, which is not easy for me to do. While I'm doing this, I'm gonna do a little exercise. I'm gonna comment on. Oh, keyboard. Anything else that we can chat about, man? That's a great question, Hunter, and it's a good theological question, but also, man, a great question for just life in general and for you. Anybody else we can talk about before we wrap it up? Okay. There we go. I'm caught up now, which is weird. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate all y'all being on and joining us. I'm gonna I'm gonna hop off here and spend the rest of the day with my family. This is super weird. I cannot wait for us to get back. So, a couple things that again I like for you to pray for is for some clarity, for some wisdom, for us as we're trying to make the best decisions for Restore Church. Pray for AJ and for the decision that she's made. Trying to encourage her and part of her faith, and man, just pray for all our Restored Church families at home. You know, I'm sure that some are committed to watching online, but in this time, man, my prayer is that people's faith in their own home will spark some revival in their hearts and in their lives. And man, we're hoping to see families change here in Jacksonville. So I guess while I end up here, or while I wrap up, man, I just want to say, go be the church. Stand up, church. Make sure that you listen first before you speak. Listen, pray, and then speak. Listen, pray, and then speak. All right, guys. Well, y'all have a great day. And if you need anything, we're always here. And we'll talk to you soon.